Welcome, guys, to another podcast. Today is Sunday, 12th March 2023. So, this is just a short update that I want this to go across Africa because it's a question that I want we Africans to ask ourselves today, because we are in a very dangerous times today that so there are certain questions that we need to ask ourselves. So let me start by putting this question, because today all of us, we know that there's a very dangerous war going on in Ukraine, between the war between Ukraine and Russia, so, and then there's a campaign all across the world today, the EU, Western powers, traveling all across Africa, because this particular question, it's for Africa, because I want us to ask ourselves this question, because all of them are going down to Africa today, asking our leaders to condemn the war in Russia that is going on right now, that they should condemn, and Africa should not support the war that is going on in Russia today. Of course, nobody supports war, because war of any kind, it's dangerous and bloody, because some of us have seen war, because we have been there, so we know what it means to be in a war zone. So the question I want Africans, we should ask these people, so now they want Africa to condemn Russia today. But when the US troop was bombing Afghanistan, do they go to Africa for Africa to condemn the US troop in Afghanistan? Do they condemn the war in Iraq? Do they go to Africa to ask the leaders to condemn US troop or US intervention in Iraq? No. Do they go to Africa and condemn the US and NATO activity in Libya? None of them. They didn't do that. Do they condemn Israel in Palestine? Do they condemn that? No. Do they condemn the US activity in Syria? No, they didn't do that. They didn't go to Africa and ask these leaders, our leaders in Africa, to condemn all these US and NATO activities across the globe. They didn't do it. But today, the war is in Europe itself. And then now they want Africans to condemn, or they want Africa to condemn Russia. Now look at this again. There is a clear provocation going on in Taiwan. The US troop, the US activities in Taiwan. Are they going to Africa right now and ask African leaders to condemn the US activity in Taiwan? No, they are not doing that, because it is in their interest for US activities, you understand, to continue in Taiwan. So if these people are seeking for peace all across the globe, right now they should condemn US activities in Taiwan. But no, they are provoking the Chinese through Taiwan. But no one is condemning them right now. They are just in Africa, or condemn Russia, because why? Ukraine is fighting for all of us. Because I don't know how Ukraine is fighting for Africa. They didn't condemn US activities in Somalia. No, they didn't do that. But today they want Africa to condemn the activities of Russia in Ukraine. My people, let me tell you, just the way these people, the European powers and the America, the State Department, just the way they see the Russian people as subhumans, that is the way they see Africans as subhuman. Just the way they see Chinese people as subhuman, that is the way they see Africans as subhuman. Just the way they see the people of Afghanistan, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, just the way they see them as subhuman, that is the way they see Africa as subhuman. So they are in no place to go to Africa and ask Africa to condemn Russia. They don't do that. And China today, they are provoking campaign. China want to take Africa, so they can't leave Africa in the hands of China. Look at what China has demonstrated now. Conflict that China never created. But today, they almost succeeding in resolving that conflict. That is the conflict between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Look at that. That is a sign of a good leadership and a country that actually seeking for peace. Because today, the Biden White House that we have today, they are not capable. They are not capable of doing anything that is right today on this planet. The Biden White House is the worst administration ever in the history of the US presidency. So they are in the State Department, they are in no place to lecture people in Africa. So these EU leaders that are going to Africa, all across Africa, talking Ukraine is fighting for Africa. Because I don't know, even you people, African, they don't know how Ukraine is fighting for Africa. So if they want you to condemn Russia in Ukraine, then they first have to condemn all US activities across the globe. Do they condemn them in Libya? The NATO activity? No, they didn't. Because it is in their interests. So we as Africans, people in China, Russia, then all across, as long as it is not Europe or the Western powers, you understand, they see all of us as subhumans. So this is the question I want Africans, you understand, let us ask ourselves this question. When they are there right now asking for Africa to condemn Russia, they should first condemn US activities all across the globe right now. Because there's a recent one going on now in Taiwan. Because that is very dangerous, that provocation. So they should first condemn, ask African leaders to condemn America activity in Taiwan. And then they could ask Africans to condemn, or ask Africa to condemn the activities of Russia in Ukraine. So this is the problem, because when it is them, it is for all of us. But when it is others that is not in their team, it is your problem. So we actually have to learn certain things, because these things like these have been going on for a very long time. So these are the questions leaders of Africa should be asking these people. Now you are here for me to condemn, or for us to condemn Russia. But why were you not here to campaign? So we should condemn US activities in Libya, in Kosovo, in Serbia, Syria, Afghanistan, Somalia. Why were you not here to condemn those activities? But today the war is in your doorstep. So you want us to condemn Russia. Of course, war is not good. War is not good. For any place or any country, war is not good. But for these people, war is business. War is business. When you check today, the biggest arms exporter across the world today is United States. Is the biggest arms exporter. So for them, war is business. You know. So let me bring a short example with the U.S. Africa Trade Summit. That is just a clear example, and then you can see that business with Africa, or such kind of business, is not in their interest. War is the business for them. So, and the trade summit between Africa and United States was $55 billion. That is the trade summit deal, $55 billion. Okay, then check that. And then how many countries do we have in Africa? It's 55. So just share the money. So that tells you business in Africa, or Africa is not their problem, it's not their concern. And then you check how much money they have within a year, how much money they have spent in Ukraine. Just within a year, it's over $150 billion or even more, because there is aid all across Europe, America, all across, you understand, going to Ukraine. You know how much is that? That is so much money. That is so much money. And then you budgeted, or the trade deal between Africa and the US is just $55 billion. And then we just have 55 countries in Africa. So just share the money. And then Dr. Arikana, the former US AU ambassador to United States, was complaining that Joe Biden invited leaders from Africa for a trade summit in the United States, and Biden has no agenda. It's a disrespect to African leaders. And this woman, Dr. Arikana, who is making such statement, you understand, they are the one controlling the AU. So if you guys knew that it's a disrespect and Biden has no agenda to, and then he called you guys to the United States, why did you guys go there? That is my question. Because clearly they don't have any agenda, because all that trade summit between US Africa trade summit, it was just a rush process just to counter whatever China is doing in Africa today in terms of trade and so many other things that is China is doing across Africa. So that is just a countermeasures, because there is no agenda. So why do the leaders, you understand, went to America? Why do they go there if they knew Biden has no agenda? That is my question. So you complaining, you as a big personality in the AU, that before you guys or these leaders were supposed to go to United States, and then you know that there is no agenda, that Biden is actually Biden has no agenda for you Africans. Why did you guys go there? You guys should have first called an emergency meeting that this is a disrespect, we can't take this, and then we are not going there. That is one. So but the leaders of Africa, they don't want to hear something called money. They will fly, go to United States and take pictures to say we met with the president of United States. They just want this fame, they just want this name, and that is not helping Africa. This is not helping Africa. Let me just shift gear a little bit, and then we talk about the Africa. This Professor P.L.O. Lumumba was talking about Africa is not on the dinner table. It's clearly true that Africa is not on the dinner table, because when you look at the dinner table is comprised of the G7 and the G20. Africa is not on the dinner table. It's clearly not on the dinner table, because the dinner table is the G7 and the G20. Africa should make it G21. But Africa is not there, because why? They are the ones giving Africa money. So Africa should not be there. So Africa, they have done nothing yet to counter all these negative activities from these Western governments. Because Africa, the leaders of Africa themselves are not working for Africa. They just work for themselves. That is the problem with Africa. Because all these Western powers, the EU, they actually knew that the African Union is corrupt. So, and they like it like that when we are corrupt, when these leaders are corrupt, because they will never approach the leaders that are actually straight, that are ready for African development. They can't approach such leaders. Instead, they will look for those leaders that are corrupt across the AU or the ECOWAS or across every state in Africa. These are the people they look for. They look for such people because why? The corruption in Africa helps them to achieve their goals in Africa. So for Africa to become a permanent member in the Security Council, just like the way the AU is every day calling for United Nations to reform itself. No, I don't think United Nations needs to reform itself. It is Africa that needs to reform itself, because you have to reform yourself before you become a member, a permanent member in the Security Council. But you are not on the dinner table. So how do you become a permanent member in the Security Council when you're not on the dinner table? That is the G7 and the G20. Because my best advice to Africa, before you start asking for a permanent membership in the Security Council, I think India should first ask for permanent membership, because India today is a great power. There is no country comparable to India today in Africa. None. So I think, in my opinion, India should first ask for permanent membership in the Security Council before Africa should ask, because there is so much corruption in Africa, and they know this. So how do you want to be a permanent member in the Security Council when you cannot protect yourself? You have a Western troop, US troop all across Africa. And let me say this clearly, because many people might want to argue with me. You know, the US troop, the US army, is not the best army in the world today. But I can guarantee you it is the most expensive army in the world, but not the best. Because there are so many other military powers across the world today that are really strong. So Africa calling for foreign troops to be on the soil of Africa, it's as if we have no strong men in Africa that should take care of Africa. You know? So we rather import foreign troops to protect Africa. It's like what? They are babysitting us. So how could you be someone they are babysitting and then you want to be permanent member in the Security Council when you are not on a dinner table? That is the G7 and the G20. How do you want to become a permanent member? So Africa should try, you understand, and try to kick back all these foreign troops across Africa, because they are not there for any purpose. They are there to serve their own purpose. So the US troop, I guarantee anybody today, it's not the best army in the world, but it's the most expensive army today in the world. So they are not the best. So we should keep an eye on things like this as Africans, if we're actually ready for change in Africa. So this is where we'll stop today, and we keep an eye on such things. So if you like what I'm doing on this channel, you could please promote this channel by click the subscribe button, like the video, and share it all across Africa, because this channel is purposely for Africans, because we need a liberation, and the only people who could liberate us from this problem is our leaders. But before they liberate us from this problem, they have to reform themselves. They have to reform the AU. They have to reform the ECOWAS before they could sit on the dinner table, and before they could sit as a permanent member in the Security Council. So this is where we'll stop today. So you can like the video if you want to help this channel grow, and then you are all welcome. All of you are welcome, Minister, because we need opinions. We need topics that could develop the minds of Africans.
Thanks for watching, guys, and see you on the next video.